Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the second version of the update 1.87 dev server, and it's time to have another look at the Challenger 2, I should say. This is the new British top tier MBT, rank 7, battle rating 10.0, and what you find from it is a little bit of a tough cookie to crack unless you know where to shoot it. It also, in my opinion, the best thing about it is the gun that it has and the rounds that it takes. So the gun itself is a 120mm L30A1 cannon. It is then backed up by two machine guns, a 7.62mm coaxial and a 7.62mm on the roof here, and also some smoke grenades, 10 of them in total. The turret rotation speed on this machine of 26.2 means that it is slightly better than some of its contemporaries and slightly worse, pretty much putting it in the middle ground of stuff. The reload rate is definitely lower than the majority of tanks that you will run into. When it comes to the Abrams and the Type 90, we're looking at 5-second aced reloads. When we're looking at the Leopard 2A5, we're looking at around 6. For the Challenger 2, it is 6.7. So the only new top-tier vehicle which is slower than it is the T80U at 7.1. And because that's an autoloader, unless you have a completed, aced crew on the Challenger 2, you will be reloading slower than it over time, unless you have, as I said, the ace crew. When it comes to the Italian tank, the Ariete P, that is at 7.5 seconds, but remember that my crew is absolutely awful on this machine, so therefore it can get down to 6 seconds. So out of all of them, the Challenger 2 technically has the worst reload out of everything, apart from the T80U aced, and the majority of the time that you're playing the Challenger 2, you should have a worse reload rate than the T80 unless you have a fully done-up crew. So, yeah, bad start. The bad doesn't end there, but some of the good does definitely come out as well. When we look at the X-ray view, it shows the composite armor of this machine, but also the fact that it has a 4-man crew. Very similar to pretty much every other machine in the game when it comes to top tier, apart from stuff which have autoloaders, which normally have 3-man crews. You have the driver, the loader, the commander, and the gunner. The commander being up on his perch, sticking out his head once again through this cupola, meaning that if the X-ray is correct, you should be able to penetrate this 8mm and shoot the commander in the head. We had this issue with the Challenger 1, actually, and I don't really know why this is once again an issue. So if you look at the Challenger, or the Challenger Mark III, you can see that the commander is actually in line with his optics, right? So at least there you have the optic block in front of the commander. If we have a look at the Challenger, if we have a look at the Challenger Mark II, you can see the same thing, right? Then, if we have a look at the Challenger 2, the optics is over here, right? And on the model, it's over there. But for some reason, the commander is looking out of the optics of the cupola. So he isn't actually looking out of the optics, which is 4 to 10 times, which is a pretty awful optics when it comes to top tier. Instead, he's looking out of the cupola. I have no idea why this is. I have no idea why he's here. Maybe it's because of the model of where the gunner is, but he is not in the correct place, or the gunner is not in the correct place. You can pick or choose one or the other. The commander should not be sticking his head out of this cupola, which is only 8mm thick. I don't care what people say, that is ridiculous. Anyway, so apart from that, you've got a pretty standard 4-man crew. Then looking at the armor, on the hull, I suppose you'd call it now, since it does spread to the lower glacis, you have 50, 200, 800, and then on the turrets, you have 50, 50, 400, 60, 110. So very strong on the turret cheeks. The center is only 200mm of rolled homogeneous though, and then 50, 200, 80 is great on the front, but it doesn't have anything on the sides, apart from the sides of the turret, whereas 20, 230, 70. So if we look at just the general numbers on this, the turret cheeks are great. The fact that the lower glacis is covered is wonderful, but generally the armor that you see here is not crazy strong. and I'll go through why if we have a look at this. So, first of all, you have the massive weak spots in the center, and I'll show you using a machine which this thing will probably face quite a lot, the T80U. We'll use this upgraded round just to be fair. So let's have a look at the armor for the for the Chieftain, for the Challenger 2 against the T80U. Lower Glacis, pen all day long. The composite armor doesn't seem to be being modeled on the lower glacis, so even though it says it is, it's only 80 millimeters worth of thickness. In this area here, when it comes to the upper glacis, you can see that it doesn't actually pen at all, which is great. 546 to 550 on these areas. Problem is right here, the button of hitting the driver's port and annihilating everything in the turret. The turret cheeks are incredibly strong. So we're talking about 750 all the way up to 1500 millimeters. So you ain't going through these turret cheeks with anything, right? You're not going through this one, you're not going through the other one, which is great. The problem that the Challenger has, though, is obviously with the low glacis, these areas here. You saw on the model that it is only rolled homogeneous armor. And as it said, these areas are subject to change. They said in the preliminary notes that stuff like the Challenger 2, the armor might be slightly wrong. I'm guessing it's talking about this area here. But the problem is, even if the Challenger is looking at you, no matter where the Challenger is, you can pen its turret. And you can kill the loader behind, or you can kill the commander or the gunner from here. And this is the problem the Challenger 1 has, and it is exemplified once again on the Challenger 2, and it is incredibly infuriating that this is the case. The fact that this area here, around the gun, is easily penned, and yes, sometimes your breech or your barrel will eat it, but the majority, if you're dealing with somebody who's a good shot, they're going to be able to hit this every time. It's not like this is a small area, this side, above it, and then this side of the gun. It is a large area. It's nearly as big as this whole area here that you can see. So, with the Challenger, it does have good armor in certain areas, right? It does have good armor on the majority of its hull. There's a little bit of an odd thing where every so often it will just go green, such as in this little area here, and I have no idea why that is the thing. I think what's happening is that it's fitting between two pieces of armor and then pushing in. But the low glacis is an issue, so you can never show that, which is fine. It's got 10 degrees of gun depression. But whenever you look at somebody, all you're going to end up with is them shooting this area again. And this is something the Leopard 2A5 doesn't really struggle with. This is something the Abrams doesn't struggle with, because the Abrams you can just kind of lol pen it anywhere. But the T80U also doesn't struggle with, but the Challenger does. And it's frustrating. Look there, right? Straight there. 247 millimeters worth of armor. You can kill two crew, that's the gunner and the commander dead. Then this thing has to retreat, then it's screwed. Because then you can push it, because it's a defensive tank, and there's not really a lot you can do because of the speed of the withdrawal that it would have. So that just kind of infuriates me, that this has a weak spot there. And I understand that, everything needs to have weak spots, but when you look at the new Leopard 2A5 and the T80's turrets, I don't understand why we need such a large weak spot for this Challenger. The sides, obviously, are not going to stop really anything. You have some first stage storage ammo right here. What is interesting, though, is only part of this is part of the first stage. So these bottom two lines are technically not in the first stage. So you've got just these, and it is 21 pieces, so you don't really have to worry about, going past that unless you're in a really elongated battle. But it's just something to think about, that this is not first stage down here, but this part is. On top of it, this is powered by a 1,217 horsepower engine at 2,300 RPM. It has the lowest powered engine, and it is the heaviest vehicle. And that just is how it is. It also has some rolled homogeneous armor around the fuel tanks. I want to see if now these fuel tanks actually do not cause fires to the rest of the machine, and they just burn off independently, because that was something that the Challenger 1 should have, but unfortunately it doesn't. So hopefully the Challenger 2 definitely has it. And then we have the radiator and the transmission, of course. So overall, I am looking forward to this Challenger 2. I just really I'm struggling with the idea that this is supposed to be the behemoth that some are claiming when it comes to its armor. It has really obvious weak spots, in my opinion, not even regarding the turret ring, right, where that you can bounce rounds into. So you've got the standard, you've got a late desert camouflage, late bicolor, then the late bicolor desert camouflage, which is definitely a bit wacky. Then you've got the winter and the unicolor winter camouflage as well. For me, the best camouflage is the black and green one. I'm going to put this on just so it kind of stands out and you can see it a little bit more. But yeah, I should show you the rounds actually. The first, or the stock round, is the L23A1, which is a good pick. It's one of the worst stock rounds out there of top-tier vehicles, but it's still manageable. 396, 343, 228. It's better than an APDS round, I'll put it like that. Then, of course, you get a Hesh round stock as well, so you don't have to pay for it. There is no use in using Hesh at top tier, in my opinion. Then you've got the L26, which is the upgraded round, rank 4 round. This is a good round. It's about 20mm worse at 0 degrees than the Abrams round, but overall it is very similar to it. Like, if we compare it, it's 471, 407, 272. Then the Abrams round is 493, 427, 284. So where it matters, it's around about 10mm of pen difference. So not too much. What is interesting is this round is 900 silver lions, and this round is 410, but generally those values change depending on the dev server and what they're doing with them. Laser rangefinder as well, along with artillery support and smoke, so the majority of stuff on the Challenger 2 is very similar to what we find on other vehicles, at this level. The problem I see with the Challenger 2 is the same one that the Challenger 1 has. I don't think this machine really helps with the issues that we see. What I mean by that is it doesn't have that strong of a breach, it doesn't have that low of a profile. This is a big tank, it's the same size as the Abrams and the Leopard 2A5 when it comes to height. The small tank I would class is the T80. It does have good traverse, it does have dual drive, it does have all of these wonderful things, but the problem is, at the end of the day, it has that huge breach, and if you don't hit that breach, you're going to hit the driver and kill it, or you're going to hit the lower glacis. Maybe this is a bit more survivable than some of the other tanks that we've seen, but the first thing I would love to see is this commander just move down. Dude, like, what are you doing up there? It makes no sense that the commander is up there. But yeah, about 40 kilometers an hour backwards, which is standard, which is great. And the turret traverse, as I said, a little bit slower than others, and it definitely has a bigger booty than the majority of stuff that is going on. I also forgot to put on the cool skins. Let's just do that real quick. The help thing. It's amazing that that hasn't really revolutionized that much when it comes to it. You know what? Fine, screw you. We'll keep on this camouflage. The upgraded round, I'm very happy to see. And I remember when the dev block for the Challenger 2 came out, a lot of people were singing its praises. But when I compare this to the T80U, the M1A1, the Leopard 2A5, I see it as a worse than the Leopard 2A5. Because the Leopard 2A5 has better armor, has a better gun, it has better reload, it has better speed. And then with the T80U, in my opinion, has better armor, just because of its lower profile and the amount of armor that it has in the areas where it has it. It still has the massive weak spots, but so does the Challenger 2. And with the M1A1, you are basically making the comparison, is it better to have more speed when it comes to acceleration on the M1A1, or is it better to have the armor of the Challenger? And also remember that the Challenger has a slightly worse round, so dealing with some of the more heavily armored vehicles may be harder for it. For me, I think the discussion goes into favor of the M1A1, and therefore, in my opinion, when we look at the top tier tanks which are being added, if we take away the idea of reverse or the idea of versatility in trying to change positions, I think the Challenger 2 definitely becomes the worst vehicle. It has the worst stat-wise when it comes to it, but the differences are not huge. And this is why I like the vehicles that have been added to top tier at rank 7 the most, because if you look at them, apart from the Leopard 2A5, I have to keep saying that right now, But if you look at them, they have specific little advantages over each other, which is great, right? So the T-80 has great armor. The Challenger 2 has great armor as well. The T-80 is a little bit faster going forward. The Challenger 2 is a little bit faster going backwards. They have very similar rounds. The M1A1, compared to the Challenger 2, has less armor, a little bit more maneuverable, slightly better round. But these are only little slight things, and this is what I mean. This is why when I look at these standardized vehicles, when I look at the Challenger 2, the M1A1, the T-80, the Ariete, I see them as all very, very similar, and therefore all will be able to be used in a way in the game. The only issue is which is going to be the best, or which is going to be the most played. And that will be, at least from our perspective, like the US perspective, where I'm situated right now, will be the M1A1 and the German Leopard 2A5. And that is just how it is when it comes to it. It is just one of those things. When the Leopard 2A4 came out with the Abrams, those were the two most played vehicles. The Challenger 1, at that time, was pretty broken because of the fact that its armor was not as good as what it is now. And the Challenger 2, I'm hoping, comes out in a state, which is looking like now that it will, that it comes out in a state which is better than the release Challenger 1, which was in a horrible state, if you remember it. So right now, at least from that point of view, I'm happy to see that this is in a good place in terms of how it may be slightly worse in some areas, but it's slightly better in others, and there is still, that leeway. There is still that interest between them. I'm happy that that is a thing with this vehicle. Will it be meta? I mean, who knows? I think all these top tier tanks are going to be meta. I don't think there will be a single one which looks worse massively compared to the rest. I think the Leopard 2A5 definitely looks better, but out of the other ones, I don't see one which I would class as a bad vehicle. I think all of them are good, including this Challenger. I may be annoyed about the Challenger, I may be annoyed about the weak spots and how it's going to have to deal with them, but it is how it is. Sometimes you've just got to roll with the punches and basically do what the British do. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.